this actually feels really good. Oh, you hear that? That's my shoulder. Slippage or, God, I'm having a hard time explaining this. I'm not gonna make it any more complicated. Ready? What's going on, you guys? My name is Charlie from MAPerformance, map.charlie on Instagram, and today we're gonna give you the top 5 pros and the top 5 cons that we found with the new 2022 BRZ. Now, we've obviously had a couple of weeks with the car from the time that we originally picked it up till today, and we've had the car up on a lift, we've had it down on the ground, we've had this thing apart and put back together again, and I feel like we've really uncovered a few things that you just don't see a lot of people talking about. So today, if you're thinking about making a purchase of a new BRZ or GR86, then this video is gonna be for you. So stay tuned, let's get into the negative things first. All right, so the first thing on our list of what I would consider cons are that for the most part, the chassis is relatively similar to the first gen of cars. Now, us included, a lot of people have gone out and said things like the catback fits just fine, the coilovers fit perfectly, things of that nature. Again, including from us. We've actually noticed that a few things have actually changed very minimally. Now, when it comes to like the catback, does the first gen catback fit? Yes. Is it perfect? I wouldn't say so. Now, there's a few things such as mounting points, hanger brackets, things of that nature that we know that when we looked at designing our own product, which we have a prototype of now, we decided we wanted to actually change it from the design of our first gen BRZ catback. Now, we've also heard similar feedback from brands who are designing things like suspension. As we all know, we've sent out a set of BC coilovers over to evanshanks. We've also helped dustinwilliams with some parts for his GR86. And do the coilovers fit from the first gen? Yes. Are they optimally designed and valved and things of that nature for the new chassis? Not necessarily. So, we've heard some feedback from other brands that they would prefer to have a revamped version of their product to put out into the marketplace specifically for the 2022 BRZ and not just the first gen stuff that fits but isn't necessarily perfect. Now, the next thing is something that I would personally take into consideration for really any new car, in my opinion at least, even just like new to me cars. I like to initially revamp the suspension, wheels, tires right out of the gate. If the car's not, on some nice set of coilovers or some cooler wheels, better tires, it's just kind of a miss for me, personally speaking. That is gonna be like some of the first things we do to our car, and this car really needs it, especially because it has this really weird 5x100 bolt pattern, which we'll get into later on, but it also has really skinny tires, kind of like Prius tires in a sense. Now, they are pretty well designed for aerodynamics and things of that nature, but they just stylistically are a bit of a miss for me. The next one on our list is something that's related to the clutch feel. In a lot of these newer cars, you're gonna get this sort of lighter clutch engagement. It kind of feels relatively non-existent for that matter, but I personally prefer a car with a clutch that I can feel the feedback from. I can feel it a little bit heavier. Now, I know a lot of people don't like that, and I'm not talking something that's like a leg press workout sort of clutch feel. I'm talking just, I like to feel a little bit of a clutch when I press the clutch in and engage that. The next one on the list is gonna be something that is relatively tied to the exhaust. But not necessarily the way the exhaust on the car specifically looks or sounds as it is. It's the weird sensation that you get from the car actually kind of like pumping that exhaust sound through the speakers inside the car. It's like an artificial audio enhancement, that I guess I would call it. What they're doing is making it so that you can hear the car inside better, while obviously providing sound deadening so that you don't hear a lot of the road noise that you would hear outside when you drive. Now, I understand where they're coming from. Obviously, the sounds you do want to hear outside are the sounds of your exhaust. But you don't necessarily maybe want to hear other noises that would be coming from just road noise, wheels, tires, whatever. An understandable thing that they'd want to put in the car, but for me, it just changed the experience a little bit. Obviously, as I'm sure you guys do as well, I like to put aftermarket exhausts on my cars so that I can hear them better, and I like to hear the actual noise that the exhaust is making, not an artificial one that they've designed for me to want to hear. The last one on our list of cons is this really strange 5x100 bolt pattern. pattern. Now I'm sure there's a great reason that they've decided to go with a 5x100 bolt pattern, but for me personally, I wish they would have just stuck with like a 5x114.3 so that we could use different wheels that we have more readily available instead of having to pick from wheels that are happening to be in stock because they're 5x100. Luckily, there are people like Dustin Williams, evanshanks, and obviously us reporting on the negatives, but also the positives of this chassis. So for us, the next thing that we're gonna cover is those positives. Let's get right into it. First thing on our list of positives is gonna be the removal of the torque dip that they had reported from the previous generation. Now, if you've ever driven one of these, you notice that it kind of falls off in that upper RPM range. Now, the first thing that I wanted to experience when I got into the new 2022 BRZ on the way home from our really long drive was taking this thing around some turns, keeping it at the top of that RPM band and seeing if that power was still there. Now it is, as I'm happy to report, a very linear power band. You can feel it all the way through, and actually, in my opinion, it feels like it is much more alive above that 4,000 RPM range up into, I think it redlines around 7,500, and it feels great all the way through. Now, obviously, we're probably supposed to do some sort of engine break-in period, so we'll just maybe scratch that or not tell Subaru. But anyways, the power band feels really great straight out of the box, and I'm excited to see what this platform can do with how it is currently set up. It feels great, but we'll make it better. Now, the next thing on the list is that the handling and the driving dynamics of this chassis are phenomenal. For me, that's a big one out of the box. If the suspension geometry and the setup out of the box isn't necessarily there, you know you're just gonna be fighting it the entire way as you modify it. It's gonna be something that you're constantly gonna be chasing as something that needs room for improvement. Now, with cars like the FK8 Type R, obviously, again, that's a chassis that's revered for its suspension geometry, something that's really, really well set up. And I don't want to necessarily put the BRZ GR86 on the exact same playing field as the FK8, but it gives me that same feeling that it's already well set up from the factory, similar to how the first gen was, where you know it's going to be a very capable track car. Now, again, I'm very excited to see what we can do with the car with some aftermarket support. However, straight out of the box, it feels good. It feels like it's been well designed, and you're really set up for success in the realm of handling and driving dynamics. The next one is relatively similar to our first point, and it's that this car is set up with quite a bit more power than the first gen was. Obviously, it's not a car that came with 500 horsepower to the wheels out of the box, but the extra horsepower that it did come with over the first gen is incredibly nice. And for me, at least from a personal level, it feels a lot better than it did the first time around. Obviously, also being that the car is NA, getting any amount of more horsepower out of this thing is going to be more expensive than a turbocharged chassis, but who knows, maybe a turbocharger might find its way into our engine bay. Next up on the list is the styling. The car, at least in my opinion, looks great. I love the look of these new headlights. I know a lot of people don't like the taillights on this car, but I personally love it. The one thing I've found a little bit weird about the rear end is that there seems to be a considerable gap between the trunk and the taillights. I'm not sure what's up with that, but I can literally fit my entire finger between them. But the styling of the car, in my opinion, looks great. For us, I know we've talked about it in previous videos, but for our build, I'm super stoked to get our HKS Aero Kit on the car. Just those extra little added bits are gonna make this thing look phenomenal. Additionally, the price point for this car is really great. It puts it down into a price range that makes it very attainable for even, newer automotive enthusiasts. So if you're not looking for necessarily a Supra price tag or something like an M3 price tag, and you're trying to shop for something in that sub $30,000 range, this car is going to be perfect for you. With these cars, we are seeing a lot of demand, and the demand is vastly outweighing the supply that they have of the cars. And with that, we're seeing dealer markups. There are ways to get these cars down to a more manageable, closer MSRP price tag. Now, if you're interested in the video for us to talk about how we got ours down to a relatively manageable price tag, I'm happy to do it. Let us know down in the comments below if you want to see something like that, and maybe we'll do it. Now, the next one on my list is kind of interesting because as it currently sits, there's not necessarily a ton of aftermarket support, but we've seen an outpouring of interest from brands and manufacturers who are interested in really being a part of the aftermarket support for this platform. Now, we know there's tons of stuff in development. I'd anticipate that by, maybe the end of next year for us to be sitting in a much more different world. And I'm sure there's not a ton of people who are necessarily buying this car brand new this year. probably see quite a bit more hit the streets starting next year. There is a ton of aftermarket support that we anticipate being available at that time, which leads us to believe that these cars will also be relatively popular in the various aftermarket motorsport arenas, if you will. I would anticipate seeing this be prevalent in things like drifting, road course racing, autocross, you name it, wheel-to-wheel racing. I'm sure this car will get used all over the board because again, there's gonna be support from tons and tons of different brands, which would make this car capable at a relatively easy to access cost for quite a few automotive enthusiasts. And now the last real big positive that I think is something that I haven't seen a ton of people necessarily talk about is the fact that this car came with an LSD or limited slip differential across all of the different trim levels. And now if you're not super familiar with why that's beneficial for you, it means that even in hard cornering, you're gonna have less traction loss throughout those corners. So again, this is gonna be a huge benefit and one of the most major components that aids in this car having that really nice handling feel, even straight as it comes out of the box. If you guys do want us to get a little bit more in depth on why a limited slip differential is great for you or your car, or maybe the different ones that you can get, different brands that support it, go ahead, let us know down in the comments because there's a lot of stuff that you could come to know about limited slip differentials. Let us know if you guys want to see that down in the comments below. We'd be happy to make a video about it. So that's going to be the end of our video for today. Obviously, it's a great platform. I think, personally speaking, the pros vastly outweigh the cons when it comes to this car. I'm super excited to get in and modify it. And if you guys are interested in staying up to date with the build of our 2022 BRZ, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any videos from us in the future. Please go ahead and leave us a big thumbs up if you found this video beneficial. Otherwise, we'll see you in the next one. I gotta get going and finish this monster that I've been drinking. We'll see you in the next video. Peace.